Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warrior Season 3, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, picking up in the aftermath of the deal, Leong, Mei-ling, Assam, and Young Jun go to kind of settle the deals, kind of fine-tune the details. Mei-ling and Young Jun, specifically Young Jun, is not too keen on this deal, which I even love Assam being like, yeah, I know my sis can be such an a-hole. And I love that she's looking and I'm like, really going to call me that? It's like, why wouldn't I? After everything, I'm entitled to call you an a-hole. Because I'm sure in her mind it's like, no, you're the a-hole, not me. You know, it's like, to be fair, you both can be a-holes. But I think you've been more of an a-hole than anyone. Mei-ling, but she just looks like she was so caught off guard when he called her that. But it's like, yeah, like the fact is, the deal was struck, it is what it isn't. But even Young Jun's like, right, I was upset with the fact is that he made this deal with you, but at the end of the day, you are the person who tried to dice him and my father. So, but it's like, yeah, past mistakes or whatever. It's like, me and my brother, we have a complicated relationship, but it's kind of, we're working on it. But that's the thing. We, as the audience, know Mei-ling's just playing the long game. She's drawing the Hopway into a position where it's easier to cut their throats, let their guards down. But that's the thing. They're never going to let their guard down. Young Jun is never going to let his guard down around you. Because at the end of the day, he even respects you. He's like, yo, you were able to claw your way to the top. He's like, hey, you are a fighter. He's like, you're a scrapper, and I appreciate that, but don't get it twisted thinking I'm soft just because I grew up in this. Because he's trying to say, like, right, you came from the outside, scraped your way in, getting into Long Zi's bed and working your way up to the top, killing and scrapping your way to the top. And you think just because I'm kind of a sort of Nepo baby of sorts, don't get it twisted. Like, I am someone you don't want to underestimate because it could be a large mistake, which she's constantly underestimated Young Jun. Maybe you can make the argument, maybe she hasn't underestimated him. She's estimated him to be who he is, like the impulsive person that he is. But just like she's a lot like Assam, she's just as much like Young Jun, impulsive and so quick to try and prove herself. Assam's kind of in the same way. That's kind of what makes that trio so interesting. But especially Mei-ling's causing some issues. I don't know if this is her planting the seeds for the future, just to potentially drive the wedge between them even more. But it's like, hey, Assam is getting very close to our printer. The fact of the matter is she's the person that's in the middle who knows all of this stuff. Like, that could be a weakness. So kind of almost like we need to kind of make sure that doesn't become a thing. And it seems like Assam told Yanmin about everything, because it's like she knows that Mei-ling is his sister. It's like, cool, I'm stuck between your sister and your best friend, both who wanted to kill each other, and I'm smack dab in the middle of 1,000 different ways this could go wrong. It's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, they're working together because it's both beneficial, and neither one of them can kill you or do anything to you because they both need you in their own way. Once again, Mei-ling is scheming, and she's just waiting for the opportunity to wipe out the Hopway, because once again, it always comes down to her. We had that whole thing of, oh, I'm going to tell you everything going forward, and then immediately afterwards, she went and made this deal with Assam behind Leong's back. He's still not quite sure how much is like, right, how much am I letting my feelings get in the way, because what should come first and foremost is the Tong. Mei-ling's kind of putting her own ambitions first, because it's not the Tong that's going to become powerful because of their deal with Buckley. It's her. The Tong's just along for the ride. You're the muscle she needs to make this happen. But either way, I thought that's actually what the whole Young Jun and Father Jun, right, they made a deal with the Germans. I thought that was specifically to get Assam out of town while they try to keep them apart. But I guess it's like that's something Young Jun's keeping in the back of his mind, because later on he's like, yo, like, you and me are going to have to talk about, you know, your relationship situation, but that's kind of all we got. But I thought because of the timing of this trip, and the fact is that him and Mei-ling had that conversation, but it seems it's unrelated. But it does seem like it's still in the back of Young Jun's mind. He just never really like brought it up to Assam in that capacity. But either way, none of them know, like, yes, we're all working together right now, but it doesn't sit well with Father Jun. In fact, him and Young Jun were talking. It's like, we need a back plan. We need to work with the Germans. We need to give them these specific brothers, we need to give them our counterfeit money, and they'll give us silver. That way we actually have some monetary stuff in our possession, because Mai Ling is definitely at some point going to turn her back on us. We can't trust her. But for Assam, it's like, right, we're already in a deal with someone, and now you want to partner up with someone else because we can't trust our current partner. So you're like, it's like, right, we're supposed to be keeping this as low key as possible. How did this start? Because Young Jun went out expanding stuff too fast, throwing out the counterfeit money. It's almost like we're kind of repeating that same mistake. It's like, oh, we're already in a partnership with someone where we literally have to split everything 50-50. Now you're saying, let's go out there and make another partnership after we just made this one that we were kind of forced into. So, but for Young Jun, it's like, yeah, we gotta put away a rainy day savings in case Mai Ling tries to screw us over, which once again we know she will. They're assuming we know for a fact that she will. So either way, let's kind of keep on that trajectory. I love that Hong was left in charge. It's like, you have to stay behind. He's like, no, why is that? Because it's like, usually it's like the trio usually goes together, but he's like, no, you have to stay behind to look after the run things while I'm going. He's like, oh, really? And he, like, Hong was really liking it. Huh? Get to be in charge, huh? So they go to meet with the, it's Young Jun, Father Jun, and Assam went to meet with these guys. And it ended up being really interesting because the guy, one of the brothers, recognizes Father Jun. It's like, right, he had good dealings with their father, but it turns out that Father Jun killed their dog Cecil. And it's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, ask him about the dead dog. He's like, okay. And I left him just standing there for a while. So I was like, oh, you mean like right now? It's like, yeah, he wants me to ask you about some dog. And he shows the bite mark. He was like, the fucking mutt deserved it. He said it in German too. And the guy laughs. He's like, yeah, it was a demon dog. So yeah, he really did put my dog down with a hatchet, but it was like kind of a demon dog. So I'm fine with it, whatever. So the deal goes through. It's like, oh, spend time here. That's also played into what I thought Young Jun was going to try and do, where he was saying like, hey, we're going to stay here, let's get some sticky. I think he was going to push it more towards Assam, but Assam's like, no, I'm kind of taken right now, so I'm not really like having any sticky on the side, essentially. I love that it was like this like large German woman that it's like, oh, taking her time with Young Jun, and Young Jun's like, he's like, well, do they have any others? Like, what? Is she not enough for you? He's like, fuck you. She might kill me. It's like, yeah, but what a way to go. And they do their thing. And I love that, like, she slaps him a little bit. And Young Jun's super into it. I was like, hey, yo, they got down to business. And Young Jun was just like, I can't feel my body. And just starts laughing because he's like, yeah. He was really, really, really into it, dude. He was like, it was an experience. But during that time, Father Jun and Assam had theirs, like, right, we haven't had an opportunity to clear the air. Obviously, there was a lot of animosity post, Assam coming back, and that was never properly dealt with. And then on top of that, yeah, we did kind of throw a coup and kind of, like, snatch you from the throne, but it's like, nah, we're okay, I get it, we don't really get along. And I guess, and even Father Jun kind of elaborates that the reason why him and Assam really don't get along is because they are kind of two peas in a pod. It's like, they are very similar. He's like, you are kind of torn between loyalty and blood, but for Assam, it's like, yeah, it's not really that much of a hard decision, but it's like, it still comes with its own complications. Family's, complicated thing. And it's like, right, because you are so split between both. Yes, you want to be loyal to Young Jun, and the fact of the matter is he needs people around he can trust, and he doesn't know who that is. It's like, you are unsettled because of the situation you're torn between, and someone that's unsettled like you is chaos itself. And he's like, I know because that was me. And it's like, well, how did you like fix that in yourself? He was like, I grew the fuck up. Which Assam has been growing. Like, he's still kind of the cocky bastard he's always been, but he has grown a lot when he became kind of that symbol for Chinatown. But even then, it's still like he's still along in his journey. He hasn't, at least Father Jun has the wisdom and age and stuff. But Assam is on his way. He's on his journey to becoming that person. He is growing. It's just he hasn't gotten to that point yet. So, because I think it's just kind of like, yeah, the naivety of the young is kind of, I think, the perspective that Father Jun has not only on Young Jun but also Assam. it did seem like young June and Assam did bury the hatchet because he's like, yo, dude, I'm sorry I jumped down your throat. I mean, the fact is you left me. You could have easily have left me to rot and get deported. And it's like, he's like, so I'm sorry. I should be more grateful. The fact is you only made this deal to kind of save me. And it's like, yeah, so they are in a slightly better place because it's like at the end of the day, it's like young June, their issues aside, is the brother that he never had, the sibling he no longer has, considering where things between him and my Ling stand. But when it was all said and done, they saw some of the Germans beating up on a little boy, calling him a thief and whatnot. And Assam wanted to step in, but young June stopped because it's like, right, we don't want, this is their territory. They make the rules. We aren't here to really fuck that up because it will screw up the deal. And so the deal went down and they left. But as they were leaving, they ended up seeing a crowd gather around. That little boy was killed and left out with a sign above him saying thief. And his mom comes over and it's like, my boy wasn't a thief. They specifically killed. They let the kid go, but they killed him specifically to make a point. Because Assam's like, they're testing us to be like, let's see if you'll actually do something or not. But for Assam, it's like he couldn't just let them get away with that. It's like they killed an innocent kid who might have been doing whatever he can just to scrape by. And Assam doesn't take that shit down lightly. Like he hates people bullying the weak and those who are defenseless, and you did it just to make a point. He went back. Young June followed, and Father June's just like, fucking onions. And so, stupid fucking onions, and charged in after him. Locked and loaded. Treated that shotgun more like a rifle. Granted, I'm not well versed enough in guns. I don't actually know the range of a shotgun. I mean, I know it scatters, but I don't know what that they're more so medium to close proximity is probably best because of the widespread of a shotgun. But I mean, I don't know how far it could go because he was taking out people in the banisters type of shit. So I don't know. I was kind of worried. I was like, dude, this is Father June's opportunity to die. I was like, please don't. I was so certain he was going to die last episode. And now I'm like, oh God, but this feels like this could be the opportunity for him to die. Luckily, everyone walked away alive. Took them all down, and I'm glad that mom was able to get her get back. She was able to kill that guy and ended up taking a hold to his head. I was like, yeah! I was kind of scared for a second whether something was happening to her or not, but they ended up killing everyone. Because I was almost wondering whether or not the Chinese people there would rally up, and it was only the mom. I mean, to be fair, she lost a child, so she was angry. She saw an opportunity, and she took it. Assam went in, took care of the main guy. Yo, that was brutal. And I like it when you kind of you're so angry you start toying with the enemy a little bit. Like when he's fighting, he slices his arm a little bit and pauses. He doesn't keep going. And it's just like, oh, I'm ready for you to strike again. And I was like, what are you going to do? I think he ended up, didn't he slice his throat and then power drove, it wasn't even a power driver. It was kind of like a back power driver or whatever. Him on, I don't know if it was a cross, but stabbed him on top of something. I was like, hey, yo, that is brutal and metal as hell. And it's just kind of the last thing you see as you die gargling on your own blood is me. So that walked away, was settled. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, okay, they came out of this okay. But then it turns out Father June got shot. He's like, oh, I'm a little wounded. I'm like, well, he's not dead. So there's that. They just, hey, we got to get him to a healer. But he's like, no. Let's go back to Chinatown. Because first and foremost, we don't want to wait for the cavalry to show up. But it does put them in a disadvantage now because it's like, well, they got this silver, so there's that. But the problem is you kind of screwed up your business opportunity. Who knows if they'll suffer ramifications because they already got to deal with My Ling's potential betrayal in the future, but now they've also made a new enemy this episode, so that definitely complicates things. I mean, who knows if whether that's really going to come back to bite them necessarily. It might. I don't think Father June's going, but we don't know. Maybe it's going to be the situation is that wound gets infected before he could get a healer and he might die. So I don't know. Are we going to bring Father June back into the story 2 episodes deep and just to kill him in the 3rd episode he's back? We'll see how that kind of plays out. That's definitely going to be interesting to see. But I think this is further parts of just kind of the story element of young June and Assam both growing the fuck up as Father June kind of puts it. So it's going to be interesting to see where that takes us. And on the other side of things, we catch up with the whole Lee and Chow situation. Really quickly, we get a little bit with Happy Jack and Abigail, who she's like, Lee's been gone for a while. What's up with that? Because Happy Jack said previously, like last episode, he's like, oh, I'll make it so that he ended up getting killed because he was caught up in the middle of the Tong situation. But it's like, he was just like, oh, he probably left, kind of implying like, yeah, maybe he found something sweeter as like another lady or something. But it's like, no, Richard's not like that. But it's like, yo, I told you that guy was going to cause trouble in your life one way or another. And she's like, did you do something to him? He's like, I had nothing to do with the guy disappearing. Or that's whatever it is, it's his business. But for her, it's like, you can complain about Lee, you can hate him and insult him all you want, but he's a better man than you. He's like, you better leave out that door before you find out what type of man I am. It's like, right, you made this whole point about her. Like, it's because Abigail, it's not even like about her being family. It's more so like, it feels like it's more so like, maybe he always had a thing for Abigail, and it's kind of very similar to kind of how Douglas, like, kind of had possession over Nellie in the regards of, I always had a thing for you, if you're with anyone else, I hate it. Maybe that's really Happy Jack's beef. It's like, cause we don't know how, well, I was about to say we do know how Abigail's husband died. I was about to say, not unless he has something to do with that, but it's like, no. Cause she had explained, I'm actually forgetting what it was off the top of my head, cause I think Abigail had talked about how her husband died, I think. But maybe Happy Jack saw that as an opportunity. He always kept Abigail close. Maybe it's not even a family thing. Maybe it's like once again, I like you thing, and that's why he has such animosity towards Lee. Or maybe it's a thing of like, your family, but I will put you in your place if need be. Cause don't get twisted on who I am. So we'll see how that plays out, especially in the aftermath at the end of the episode. Jumping ahead a little bit, but like with them both being okay and both having the motivation to come after Happy Jack, I'm curious to see what the aftermath of that looks like. It's like, oh, you try to screw us over, we're back, motherfucker, we're still alive. So we'll see. But this episode, interesting enough, brought Chow and Lee together because they both learned so much about each other in this regard. I don't know how many people in Chinatown know about Chow's circumstances. We know that Atoy definitely knows about his circumstances, and we know that he told his story to Assam. I'd assume Father June knows. I don't know how many people like Young June or whatever, or like Mai Ling or Li Yong. I don't know how much they know about it. Maybe Li Yong because they're kind of drinking buddies and they hang out from time to time, but I don't know if Mai Ling knows about Chow's circumstances. I think I brought that up last episode about how, yeah, him getting captured again and his history with being a slave. I think I might have referenced that, or maybe I talked about it, or maybe I just thought about it. I don't remember if I actually talked about it in the review from last episode, but either way, they had some really interesting elements to their conversation where Chow was like, oh, like, who are you? Why are you, like, being sent away? Like, who did you kill? Was it a friend, an enemy, family? And Lee responding the way he did probably gave Chow all he needed to know. He's also like, why did you do it for? Who was she? Because the only time people kill is for money or for love, and you don't kill for money, so it has to be for love. You never do anything for money, so... And it led to this really interesting understanding of why Chow operates the way he did. Because Lee said something interesting where Lee was like, you'd sell your own child, if it meant you could make a profit, which you could tell, like, got under, like, Chow's skin, which we know what he did. He gave up his daughter for her to have a better life. He would never do that. In fact, he got her away from her mother because her mom is a lady of the night, and she was still doing that despite Chow making sure she got payments and stuff like that so that her and Hannah could be taken care of. But on top of that, you were not only doing that, you were also doing it in the same house as the child. So that's why he did what he did. But still, Chow's not about to let anybody know about that secret. The only person who knows, at least that we're aware of, is Atoy. So, but either way, it's just like, I like that thing of like, they're both making these remarks, like kind of like chipping away at the other, not knowing how much it's going to like really bother him. Like Chow saying something to Lee gets under his skin, Lee says something that gets under Chow's skin. But Chow's breakdown of understanding of like why he does business, for him, it's like, it's not even about like, the money is easy to make, but a deal, a deal being struck, that means we are connected, that things are good between us because it's no longer you're white and I'm Chinese. We have a deal and we might not like each other, but once a deal is struck, that's kind of all that matters. It's kind of the end, it's the alpha and omega. Like it ends and begins with a deal. So that's why he's all about, it's not even about the money. It's by securing deals and connections. Because it's like, yeah, despite all that you've done is kind of Lee's point where it's like, despite all that, look at where you are now, you know, because he was like, because at the very least having those deals makes him free because he is someone who knows a situation where money doesn't mean anything. Deals and connections are what keep you free, has kept him free. And because it's like, right, what are you at the end of the day? He's like, the fact is, no one's going to miss you. You have no one you can rely on. All you have is you. Like, doesn't really sound that free, does it? You know, and you could tell it bothered Chow because it's like, right, you kind of have no one, you stand for nothing. Chow has his own moral code. It's a very gray and complicated moral code, but he has his own moral code. It just, he doesn't share it with a lot of people. You know, we know that there's good depths to Chow. It's just very deep with under all his, like, his complications and nuance, the enigma that he is, you know? So it turns out the people that actually got him from Happy Jack were family. It's his cousins that got him, and they're taking him to his their mom, his Aunt Violet. His cousins he's killed, these were her children. Her two boys two of her boys. So I guess she has 4 in total. Plus, there's the main one in this episode, the 2 that Lee killed, and Carter. And Lee also finds out what this was all about. It's like, oh, you killed family, but you did it because of a woman. And also hearing about, like, oh, finding out that it was a colored woman too, I think it made Lee kind of have a lot more respect. And it made Chow have a lot more respect for Lee. So, and even to the point later on when Chow wouldn't comply, they ended up like knocking him down, ended up ripping the back of his shirt, and Lee saw all those marks in his back because I'm sure he's living in the South. I'm sure he witnessed that enough of like lashings that people got, so he ended up sticking up for Chow. It's like, oh, like there's a lot more to your story that I don't know about. And his aunt chastised him because it's like, oh, here you are defending someone else when you should be looking out for family. But for Lee, it's like, you were never family to me. And in fact, later on has his cousin Carter lash him. Because when it was all said and done, you know, Lee tried to talk to his cousin Carter. It's like, right, you don't have to do this. I remember when I kind of taught you to swim, you were afraid that you were going to drown. Like you had such fear in your eyes, and you have it now. Because he kind of feels complicated because he looked up to Lee. Lee was very important and very important to him. And now it's like he's here in a situation where he's going to not even potentially, will eventually kill this person he looked up to. But this is still the same person that killed his brothers. It's like, because it's like, right, I wanted my life to like be away from my family. Because even Lee's like, I thought you would have gotten as far away from them as you could. He's like, I want it to be. I could have. That Lee doing what he did made it so he had no choice but to stay. I couldn't abandon my other brother and my mom at a time like that. Your decision, you know, made it so that I had to become this. But it's like, you don't have to. You could easily walk away. He tried to give his cousin multiple chances, you know, because this is like someone he cared about. He's like, you were always a good kid, and now you've had to become this monster. And it's also because he feels responsible. I was like, my choices, my actions, because I was consumed by my rage because of what my cousins did. Because for him, it's like, they killed a woman I love. But for his family, it's like, why would you get so upset over, you know, some colored gal? Like, that's their perspective of it. It's like, yeah, if she was white, it's one thing. But no, it's like, she's less than human. So why are you getting so caught up in it? So that's their perspective. And, you know, so that's why, you know, Lee's been running so long from the terrible thing that he's done, and he has to live with it. And but he also said it, you know, to Bill back in season 1, I would not turn back time and change it. Why would I, you know, he feels bad about right, I took a life and that sticks with me, but I think it's still true that he would do it again considering it, but it does come with its own asterisk because now he has to live with the effect it had on those who stayed behind. His aunt is one thing. His other cousin is one thing. I think his cousin's name is Bo, the other one. But what it really comes down to is the effect it had on Carter. So, and they also proceeded, I think I brought this up before, but they were lashing him while this was all happening. And Chow managed to get away, but he came back saying, like, right, I did it because of the horse. But it's like, no, Lee saved his life, gave him an opportunity, jumped in front of him and saved him. So he came back for him because it's like, I think, well, not even think, we know that Chow, I keep doing this, sorry, that Chow got away before. And he has lived with the regret of a lot of the people he was slaves with are still back in Cuba. He kind of lives with that guilt. And so I think it's almost this thing where for Lee, he couldn't save, wasn't the woman he loved named Nora, he couldn't protect her. He could only get revenge for her. So stepping up for Chow almost kind of made up for that. And for Chow to come back for Lee, it almost, in his mind, makes up for like leaving behind all the other people that were in a dire situation. And because also what Lee said about like standing up for something, he'd always stood up for himself, considering the background and circumstances he came from when it came to, coming from a slave situation. And they end up putting all of them down. Like, Lee still tried to give Carter an opportunity to walk away, but he couldn't. It's like, right, you've killed all my other brothers and you killed my mom now, but Carter had the gun. He was about to go after Chow, but Lee put him down. It's like Chow's life was saved once again. So when the time came, and despite it all, Lee has to bury more family. It's once again, it's not as much with his aunt and Bo, but it's more so about Carter. It's like, that kid, you're the family member I cared about a lot. Dude, you could have walked away, you could have lived a whole life. You didn't have to become who she wanted you to be. But I couldn't. I failed to change things. Like, I wanted to do things differently than last time. I was so consumed with my rage that, yes, he was justified in what he did, but he still had to live with that. And now he has to live with killing more people, burying more family, regardless of it all. Despite them being the monsters they are, most of them were, it's still your own family. And the fact that Chow was there to lend a hand to help him bury them, I thought was kind of beautiful. Like I said, I think their relationship is going to be really interesting going forward. So them finding their way back to Chinatown is going to also be interesting too. I mean, we have no idea, like, though they were on the train for a while, so getting back is probably going to be a bit of a hassle. But I'm sure, like, Chow's resourceful enough. And luckily he has a white man like Lee with him, so that's going to make things a little bit easier to kind of go about. I don't know if they're the only ones left with the bounty on. The bounty's not going to go away, granted, like, well, because who knows how much family he has left. He has, like, his mom and dad, I believe. His parents. Well, they reference his mom. His dad might not be alive, but they at least reference his mom of like, oh, what kind of toll it took on her. But the bounty's still going to stay on him, so someone's going to come and try and still collect it at some point in time. That's not going to really go away. Once again, Mosley's dead, so can't really, you can't really erase that like you kind of hoped he would, so... Like I said, it's going to definitely be interesting to see when they find their way back to Chinatown, what that's going to be like with that confrontation with Happy Jack. I wonder how he's going to feel about that, We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.